Welcome back, everyone. We're here for our mid-range hooker analysis video. So between 600k and 400k. And as you'll see through all of these videos, guys, I will go from highest price to the lowest price in that position. So if you are looking for a certain player, just jump in a little bit further, wherever you need to go. So top price to lowest price. And if you say, where's this person? And they're not in this price range, they'll be in another video. So I do hope you enjoyed the guns hooker video. Which gun are you selecting, and are you selecting one? There's a lot of different strategies you can go with. You could be picking a mid-range and a cheapie. You could pick 2 or 3 cheapies. You could go a gun, a couple of cheapies. You could go just one gun, one cheapie. There's so many different ways to go about it, and hopefully I can help you guys with your analysis and your general thoughts and see if it sort of matches up with mine. If it doesn't, and maybe you have a better read on the situation, or you just a better read money on the situation, or you're just excited about that certain player, and that's fine too. Most of these guys should be able to do a really good job. But just as a note, to start things off with Api Coruscant, is he will be missing round 1, serving the final game of his 3-game suspension. He had a couple of games off in the Pacific Champs, and his last one, unfortunately, if they made the finals, then he would have been able to take that one off too, but they didn't, so he will be missing round 1. Which is frustrating for, I think, a few people, considering him with the likelihood of him improving, I think, in a better team, which is something that we did see with the Panthers, which I'll go through in a second. But some other news is that Jerome Luai has been sent for scans on a lower leg injury, which apparently is going to be okay. You'll have this video within 12 hours of the injury or something, so hopefully he's all good for him, but they'll go get that checked, and apparently he's just been told to have a rest the rest of the week, so they're obviously not thinking it's too bad, but God, can you imagine if it is? Let's hope it's not in the time that you do see this video. But Api Coruscant there, we've got him at 593k. 44.4 was his average last year, and the price reaction I've got is it's not bad, really, for what we know he can produce. But he's a 6 out of 10 consistency, and I've got 7 out of 10 confidence that he can have a better season than 44.4. He has done this before, and he's done it better with the Penrith Panthers, and he's got a pretty solid upside, I think, on that price point, obviously, once he does play. And with that suspension in the first game, you can use him as a looper. So the Tigers aren't going to Vegas, which means that you can loop in that first couple of games and then could have a crack at Api Coruscant, coming into your side and using him as a loop if you are keen on him in that hooker position. It's something to think about. And if you haven't, well, by this point, you won't have my looping video yet, which will be very, very soon. The video you just seen will be the differences between Fantasy and Supercoach, but tonight there will be a looping video come out. It's going to be all about the, helping the beginners in their first and second year players in fantasy. And then the second part of the video is going to be on looping. So if you need a refresher, or if you need to get some, learnings on some highbrow looping, then do check out that video tonight that's going to come out there. So yes, that's Api. You can loop him. So just keep that in mind. In 2022 with the Panthers, he had 41.7 tackles to 3.9 misses. So that was makes to misses there. Even better in 2021 at only 2.5 misses, which was good. Moving over to the Tigers, it gets pretty gross viewing. He increases his misses by 1.2 per game, so 2.4 points, and then goes to 5.6 last year, which is massive swings, and he goes from 41.7 tackles down to 34, and then 37 last year with the couple of, the extra point a game in misses. So a lot of Api's issues come more from the tackling side of things, which is what we saw with Reed as well, is just things weren't as good in that first year with the Dogs when they weren't playing great, and then they improved last year, and he averaged a whole 7 points more. So with Api, he actually averaged over 48 in his time at the Panthers in less minutes sometimes, which is pretty crazy. So with the tackling side, what I'm noticing a lot with the stats is if they're in a better team, they can perform better on the tackling side and then lift that their average significantly. Because if you're looking between 2022 and 2024 with the Panthers there, he loses 3.4 more points in missed tackles, and he makes another 4.5. So, it's getting closer to the 9 mark, and that's the big swing. It's 44.8, and he was up over 50 in 2022. So just in tackles alone, and he is goal kicking as well. So if he keeps that, that'll be very helpful for him, and hopefully the Tigers can do well on that standpoint. But yeah, the missed tackle numbers are crazy. He looked to be carrying injuries last year to his back at different stages of the season, despite playing most of the games, which was interesting. He did go off at sort of 50 odd minutes one time, and I think it was a late 20s game as well when I was analysing him, and that hurt his scores a little bit, but not a tremendous amount. It was more the fact that he was hurt in games, and I owned him in Supercoach last year, and it was tough viewing at times. He also had like 2 or 3 tries that were overturned. They were really close, and I thought that they should have been tries, and they were the 50-50 ones, and they weren't given. So those kind of things, hurt him as well. But it can be helpful to him in this season. If the team can improve, I do expect his tackle numbers to improve alongside, with a small bump in attack. He would need to maintain his goal kicking, which we are unsure of at the moment for sure, if it's going to be him or Adam Dewey. Overall, Appy's a tough watch, with his consistency being very low as a 5.6 per game. Missed tackle guy and used to make 40 plus. So this is where the big swing is, and it's hard to see it improving drastically and quick enough, which is why I can't go for him even after the missed game in round 1. Even though I do see some improvement, I can't go for him. And I do think that the looping thing shouldn't deter you, or him missing round 1 shouldn't deter you too much. I just think do you trust him to go back to a 50 plus in a team that's likely to improve? A lot of that probably stands on if Luai's fine, which it seems like he most likely is. Jeremy Marshall-King, 590k, just a tick under that of Appy, at a 44.2 price point. Price reaction for him, I think it's fair. He's had, times where injuries is why you look at him and go, oh yeah, he could be near a 50, but he always ends up somewhere in this mid-40s, which is frustrating for sure. Because in normal minute games, he's a much better scorer. Consistency is a 7, confidence a 6.5 for him. I do think that Appy outscores Jeremy Marshall-King this year, which is why the confidence is a tiny bit lower than him. He has done this and slightly better before, which is good. The 5-round expectation, 43 to 48 for him, and the exact same for Appy. I think there's a chance for a little bit of improvement if they stay on the park, obviously, in that time. Not a little bit less upside than Appy, not too much downside risk, to be fair. And I think it's unlikely you could regret owning him, and it's a maybe for Appy, but I just don't see it from round 1 as a regret for Appy, that's for sure. But for Jeremy, it's a 48 average in normal minute games in 2024, which is nice, and a 51 average the year before for Jeremy Marshall-King. Copped a few injuries over the last 2 years, which has slowed him down at times, and that's why he has those, that higher average, and is why people look at him in the preseason. There's definitely a world where you can average close to 50 and can hold through to around 18, I think, because that's when he starts to fall away a little bit, and more for the fact that you get them into their second lot of buys, and they've got 2 quick buys there, so that's where you'd want to jump on him. But Dolphins have a really nice start, getting free run for Jeremy all the way through until just after the first buy. Doesn't have a great deal of upside, which can be annoying, and it's it can be inconsistent in the 30s and 40s. I expect the team to be similar. Hopefully some of Gilbert's help next to him defensively would be nice. I just feel like he's someone that hasn't been spoken about too much, and I think he can do a solid job. But when you do have guys a little bit more expensive, and Robson and Reed, you could go for them. But if you do want this guy at a cheaper price at $5.90, where you can spend some money elsewhere, then that works well also. Blake Brailey, our 10th hooker on the list between the guns and the mid-range guys so far. But for Blake Brailey, it's a 582k price, 6 and 6 for consistency and confidence. He has done this before very regularly, and the bloke just never gets injured. It's absolutely wild. But I do have a 5-game expectation of between 41 and 46 for Blake, and I'll tell you why. I definitely don't think you'll regret not owning. It should just be more of the same for him. He's had no injuries, and he has no 50 plus upside, sadly. He'll have his 3 to 4 game moments where people get excited when he scores well, but then he just goes back to disappointing with 30s and 40s, which when you're paying the average, if you're paying near 500k for Blake Brailey, then yeah, not a problem. But if you're paying what he averages over a season, it's not going to help you too much, because he had 9 games over 50 last year, and only one that he snuck over 60. So yeah, not too much to look at there. AFB comes in. We just found out that apparently he's probably going to play a few less minutes. So I think that hurts his fantasy chances, but we'll discuss him a little bit further when we get to the mids very soon. AFB comes in, maybe the odd extra assist to him, but I don't think it's worth it. You really want him to average 50 to be worth it in your side, and you can't even get there in half his game. So he played like 23 games or something. For J.Brailey, so it's a no from me. Wade Egan, and think about it, guys. J.Brailey, his brother, might be a bit more of an interesting pick, but Wade Egan, I get asked to talk about him each and every year, and he does have times where he plays really, really well. Make sure you do subscribe and hit the notification bell, guys. And if you do want to check out these podcasts earlier, I'm dropping them 3 to 4 hours before the YouTube channel, and I'm looking to grow that this year. So if you're happy just to hear me talk and in the car or at work or whatever, rather than have the YouTube app up, then that's going to be helpful for me and for you guys as well. So thanks for that. For Wade Egan, I think the price is fair. The role's really good. Consistency, 6.5. Confidence, 6.9. I think he'll be fine this year. He's done it before. He's got 3-game upside of 30%, a 3-game downside risk of 40% because he gets hit in the head a bit. I think it's for could you regret not owning. He could have a good start, but I don't think you'll regret it. 41 to 46 I'm expecting. I do think that he is a better scorer than where he's priced at, but for how long is the question. 3 years in a row now, he's been between a 40 and a 42 average. That probably says enough. In my opinion, he has had so many injuries, HIAs, and non-80-minute games, which is frustrating. 44.2 average in 72.2 minutes per game last year without those injury games, but we do have to factor that in, which is why I think that first line, the 3 years in a row between 40 to 42, is enough. But he had a 47.4 average in the same minutes the year before when they played really well. Can they get back to that? It's unlikely, I suppose. So he's only up 6 points of value if everything goes right, which probably doesn't happen. He seems to start super well if he doesn't get a HIA, except last year he did get one. So he went really well the year before at the start. And also, how will the team go? Lots of questions for Egan. And for me, it's a no. But if you're a Waz fan and you're hoping that he starts well like he did a couple of years ago, then it could work. J.Brailey. What a man. What a man. He's done me proud in years past, and last year it wasn't too pretty, apart from a couple of games, but 512k for him, a 38.3 average last year. Let's just get straight into my analysis on him, and then we'll go through the top section. But I'm expecting him to go 41 to 46, which is anywhere between 3 and 8 points of value in the first 5 rounds. Let's discuss. Jaden surprisingly averaged 62 minutes last year with his lowest PPM of 0.62. Which is close to the previous 2 years of 0.64 and 0.65. So a little bit of a drop there. 62 minutes after 70 benchings and all that kind of stuff. We do want him to play bigger minutes, so that's where the value can lie. The question is, does he get back to the big minutes after finally making it through a season without major injury? This has been the problem since 2021, where he did smash it for the first half of the season. And coach came out and said he wants to manage him, given he hasn't played a lot of footy and he hasn't got through seasons. So for him to get through the season for the most part last year, I think was really huge in his development back into a bigger minute role. And they do a good job with him at the helm, and they've done that in previous seasons. They've done a good job. Just hasn't been there as their sole hooker for a long time. And it's exactly what the Knights need, is someone to stick strong in that position and do some good work in there out of dummy half. And just get the right people the footy at the right time. And when I say the right people, I mean Sir Kalen Ponga. 45.6 in 74.7 minutes starting 9. Isn't super exciting, but it's a good jump in 14 games last year, and he has a better PPM in other seasons. So if he was to get near the 75 minutes, so basically close to a full game, 70 to 75 there, then he goes back to, a slight improved PPM, then he's anywhere between a 45 to a 47, 48, which is 7 to 10 points of value. And, if he gets to 80-minute games and gets back to that improved PPM, then it's, you're pushing closer to 10, and getting closer to 50 point scorers, which hasn't happened in a while and is a little bit of a stretch, I think, saying it out loud, really trying to justify it, it feels like to me. So I think when you do that, it's probably one that you need to sit back and go, oh, do I actually want to do this? If Crossland's in the halves round 1 and coach says he's ready to ramp Brailey back up, then I think he's a really good shout. You're looking at sort of eight or so points of value pretty comfortably without too much risk, given he's a tackle bot, doesn't run too much out of dummy half, and hopefully can get the odd try assist or something close to the line with a Leo Thompson or something like that. So for me, the consistency is 7.5 along with the confidence I have in him to do better than 38. He has done it before and better. 3-game upside, I think 40%. He has the first 3 games against okay teams before the bye. I think you could potentially not regret not owning him. If he went like a 48 or something, that'd be annoying. But yeah, that 5-round average of 41 to 46 I'm expecting. So that's a fun one. Sam Verrills, 496. Has the bye round 1, and I almost forgot him in this list just for that reason. But price reaction, I think it's decent. Nothing super exciting, to be honest, in my opinion. But likely big minutes for him. He's done this before. Needs to be starting. 20% upside on that front. Bit of downside for sure, because he has to hit 40 plus to be worth it, I think, at that price. I'm expecting 35 to 40, so somewhere about where he's at. He does average 44 in 70-minute games in his career, plus last year, and that alone, that's just a tick under 7 points of value, which doesn't sound super exciting. And no real upside in general, because he has heaps of high 30 games and a high score of 58 last year. And he's going to have guys like Randall on the bench to take up some minutes, I think, as well. So, yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. If he ends up with 60 minutes, then it's a loss and you're not even making money. He could end up with 80-minute games, and in that scenario, he could get to a 45 plus. But I doubt he's going to play 80 every game, to be fair. Just have seen a few too many risks and thoughts for someone that's not playing round 1. We don't get to see how it goes. And you're taking blind faith on that one when there are better other options, I should say, in the hooking spot. So you'll have a little value, but with a buy round one, it's yucky. Yucky. Let's move to Aaron Clark. 482. He has the mid-dual. 36.1 he scored last year, and he moves to the Wars. So the price reaction, I look at it and go, decent for what we've seen from him in the past. It's a nice roll reaction, I think, because he's a solid chance for some decent minutes with Tohu retiring, but he is fighting with Dylan Walker. So the analysis we're going to do on him states that he needs to be starting. He needs starter minutes. All right, so let's go straight to that. 0.91 and a 0.81 ppm the last 2 years. Pretty big jump, to be fair. A big loss 2 years ago. He does need 50 to 55 minutes to be safe and would have to be a starter in that scenario. It still comes with risk, as he could get switched for Walker very easily as well. Like if he happened to play an average game, they could just go, nah, Walker, you're starting now. Clark, you go back to lower minutes. Even if it was 40, 50 for Walker, 40 for Clark, they mix a front row or take 10 minutes from Egan, something like that, right? Between those guys. Unless they pick a Freddie Lussick or something on the bench, CHT that could play, some 9. Could be hard for both of them to get a really good role. So my other question is Aaron Clark's coming over from the Titans. Is he just going to come over and play the same role of lower minutes off the bench, or is there something more for him at the Wars? That's probably the big question. Because he, even with Tino out last year, he still didn't play big minutes. So is he that guy that is a 40 minutes or less player for teams? Or is he a chance to come over and have a bigger and extended role? That's the big question for him. In games over 40 minutes in 2023, he averaged 36.4 in 45 minutes, a 40 average in 44 minutes last year, which showed the better PPM. In 6 games a lock, he has gone over 50 minutes in all of them, going 1 PPM, 55 minutes in that time. At that 1 ppm, which is pretty crazy. So 55 points in 55 minutes. So he can definitely do it, but the risk is high in my opinion. The dual is nice. If he gets the start, I think a lot of people will jump on. But there's still risk, because does he actually get 55 minutes if he starts, or does he get 45? And if it's 45, then he has 0 to 4 points of value. If it's 50 minutes, it's 5 to 8 points, 9 points of value. And if it's 55, you can get to sort of that 10 to 13 to 14 range there. with a ridiculous PPM of 1. I doubt that sticks for a longer time frame. You can do it randomly and for 3-game stretches, which we've seen, but I don't think you can do it long term. So Aaron Clark, an interesting selection for sure if he managed to get that starting position. All right, Mr. Tom Starling. 450k for Thomas. I can't believe we're talking about him every year. It's wild, isn't it? The price reaction is solid. You know, he had plenty of games off the bench last year and then a bunch of games starting. And a lot of us, if you played last year, would remember that and potentially remember owning him. The consistency is not there, obviously. There's so many times where he moves from bench to the starter, back to the bench. It's Ricky roulette. For those that don't know, Ricky hates keeping this man especially and a bunch of other players in their preferred position. And they just haven't had a good stick solid 9 for a long time now since Josh Hodgson. And it's just been merry-go-round since then. So it's very, very hard to work out. A 6 consistency, 6 confidence that it stays long-term if he does get the start. But for him, yeah, I think he's done this multiple times before where he's been in and out. I did forget, to go through Aaron Clark. I've got him anywhere between 32 and 42 if he is bench or starter. But I think you probably don't regret owning him because if he happens to get 55 minutes, you could easily buy him at 500k. Yeah, it's not a problem with that one. Sorry. Back to Starling. Upside for him, 40% if starting. Also 40% downside risk over a 3-game period. So it's something to think about. And you could potentially regret not owning because he gets some good scores in there. So as I said, 30.7 for him. I've got a 5-round expectation from 30 to 50. So anywhere from like 30 in okay minutes off the bench all the way up to a 50 if starting. So if Starling is around one hooker with no bench hooker, that's the key. It would be almost must-have territory. This, as we know, can change very, very quickly. If he was to be the starter with a bench hooker, it also may be a great selection. Off the interchange last 2 years, he's been under 40 minutes. As a starter the last 3 years, he's played 70 minutes, but it's only been 13 games in 3 years. What makes us expect that to change this year is the question. Yeah, that's just over 4 games per year that he averages as a starter, and that was actually more last year than anything. So if that continues, although he did well for that portion, and then he got pushed back to the bench for the end of the year anyway. So which way are they going to select in that one? They also have Owen Paddy, who's a young hooker, who's actually doing some reps in their opposed session the other day. So we will discuss him. He's not actually in the game yet. Once you go and have a look after I've said that, but he is in the Supercoach game, and not that matters if he plays trials and stuff. He'll end up in fantasy, but youngster on his front. So, but anyway, 50 average last year in that role in 7 games that he started. So I said more than half those games in the last 3 years were last year. Will it happen again? Maybe. Will Ricky change his mind? Unequivocally, yes. Starling, what a fun one. I can't believe we have to talk about him every year. It's when you jump on him at the right time and get, you don't want to jump on too late. That was happened last year. People jumped on after like 4 games, and I think they got 1 or 2 good ones, and then back to the bench. So there you go. All right, my mid-range hooker rankings, guys. That's going to be in the private group along with my hook team structure. So how many I'm going to pick, all that kind of stuff. Everyone will know in the private group. So join that, guys, if you'd like. All the info is in the description. There's prizes. You get my top 10 analysis, all the good stuff in there. If you got any questions, email me. My email is in the up top in the description in my bio on YouTube, and then in the description at the bottom too. All right, let's finish it off with Heath's thoughts. That's a hard one to say. He, as I said in the guns video, he put his guys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he actually has Verrills at 4 and Clark at 5. So he did want to put Verrills at 2, but then remembered that possible AJ and Campbell starting halves. He only came back to the starting role halfway through the year, and he averaged 45.2 when starting and had that role end of year. 4 in utility worry now, but if not impacted, then he thinks he's a great pick. And then Aaron Clark still needs to see his role, but even without a start, he thinks he could be value. 47.8 average at lock in 51 minutes, 39.3 in prop for 43 minutes. So that's a little bit better than his price currently. If he does about half the time in each, he's looking at around 43 projection. If spelling at hooker, though, avoid. If starting lock, then moves to number 1 for him, which is pretty wild, that's for sure. And now moving over to Scoop's thoughts to finish up, guys. Aaron Clark, he's got him at a 7.5 out of 10. Really good if starting at lock, he says. 2024 average 36, 2025 average if starting he thinks is a 45. His pros, if he starts a lock, he's a way better point scorer than Walker. A very solid option if you want to run Watson in mids and gun up in other positions. In the past, he's got close to 50 and not much over 50 minutes, so watch this space. DPP is great too, so dual player position. The cons for him, he just doesn't know if he will, or if the Warriors start slow, they just go back to old reliable and put Dylan Walker there like they so often do. Clark could play the minutes at hooker and spell Egan, so the position doesn't seem as secure. Yes, good call. And just a quick thought on the other three guys there. We didn't mention Robson there. He's got him at a 6.5 to 7 out of 10. Reed Marnie, same situation. Starts strong with Robson, finishes slow. Similar with Reed. I guess he could have a better start than his average, but there's much clearer upside elsewhere. And he's leaving for Roosters next year, so don't expect him to be a year-long option if they blood a new guy in the back end from the bench. Yeah, sure, but I'm not sure who they are going to pick. That's the question. Need to do some research in my top 30. But with Reed, similar to Robson, as I said, just don't see why you want somebody who's not a top shelf hooker unless you expect him to miss a lot less tackles or the Bulldogs step up another gear. Probably starts stronger than he finishes, but not when you can buy other highly undervalued options. And then Starling to finish, he's got him at a 6 to 6.5 out of 10. Not really interested now that he's been priced up 3 points. That's the other thing to think about there. With Starling that I did forget to mention, so thank you, Scoop, for picking that up. Priced up 3 points is wild, assuming that he's a chance of getting the start there. And means that, again, he'd still potentially be okay if he's a starter. If he's a starter with no bench guy, still great. But Levi's not in the running to start anyway, and he was spotted at Rabbitohs HQ a few weeks ago. All not great signs. That's a great way to leave this one. Thanks, Scoop. Thanks, Heath, for providing your thoughts on those guys. Mitch was just all in on discussing the two gun hookers. So yeah, that's that on all the content guys on the squad. Thanks so much for being here for the mid-range video, and we'll follow this one up with the 400k and below guys once you see another hooker analysis. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll catch you in that next video tonight.